setting.
You may be seated. Good afternoon. You ready to proceed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Defendants will call Karen Boswell.
You want to raise your right hand and be sworn. You solemnly swear, affirm, tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth to the best of your knowledge, so help you God. Please be seated.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Karen, Karyn, Price, Price, Boswell, Boswell.
And Ms. Boswell, how are you employed?
I am a Lake County prosecutor.
And what specifically are your duties within the Lake County Prosecutor's Office?
I'm actually the director of our Child Support 4D division, and so that entails a lot of administrative work, and I still also have to go to court.
What aspects of the 4D process are you involved in as the director?
Everything from making sure our court call is covered, making sure our deputies are following proper procedures, making sure our caseworkers are following proper procedure, interacting with the public, dealing with our budget.
And how many employees do you have that work for you as the director?
Robert?
Your Honor, she doesn't have any employees. She's not the Lake County prosecutor. I think that's a mischaracterization of her job.
If that's her answer, then I can ask a different question if she has no.
Ask her. Overruled.
In the 4D division, roughly we probably have at least 55 employees, that's staff and attorneys.
And you're familiar with the 4D system countywide?
Correct.
In Lake County, which courts handle or hear 4D matters?
There's two designated courts. We have the two courts that are currently in Crown Point that are exclusively to hear 4D matters. We are also before Magistrate Teagarden for cases. Sometimes people that pursue cases not through the 4D program, they require our services, so they can require our services by paying a fee, and sometimes that fee can be waived. So we appear before Magistrate Teagarden. We appear in Circuit Court, Magistrate Seraphin. We appear in Chicago before Judge Hawkins. We actually have a case next week. Well, we have a case next week before Judge Spetnoff, and we appear in Gary, the Domestic Relations Division in Gary.
What determines where a 4D case is heard in general first, of all those courts you've talked about?
Okay. Well, if people are divorced and their divorce occurs in a domestic relations court in Lake County, and then one of the parties get on TANF or require our services, then we go to the 4D prosecutor will go to wherever that court is. Circuit, East Chicago, Hammond, and Gary. Then if a person is receiving TANF, they're required by law to participate in the 4D program. And those cases are usually heard by our 4D magistrates. Prior to June 30th, 2012, also if you were receiving Medicaid, you had to participate in the 4D program. Since June 30th, 2012, if you're on Medicaid, that is optional, but that would also appear in our 4D courts that are designated for 4D. And then again, we could be before Magistrate Teagarden if the parties had a child on their own and they decided to pursue child support. And then again, if one of the parties got on TANF, if the mother got on TANF, or if the CP came in and wanted our services, or the non-custodial parent, we would appear before them. So we really appear in all of the domestic relation divisions in Lake County.
Now, addressing specifically juvenile division 4D matters, who are the magistrates that routinely hear those?
Our 4D magistrates are Magistrate Katie Garza and Magistrate Terry Wilson.
Okay. And those are the two magistrates that routinely hear the 4D matters?
Yes, they're designated to hear the 4D cases for the 4D program.
What about Magistrate Teagarden? Where is he located?
Magistrate Teagarden is also in Crown Point. She does also hear 4D cases, and how a case usually ends up with her is that private parties who have a child born out of wedlock, who initially have no 4D involvement, will file their case there. Again, if the custodial parent, that's the parent who has the child, gets on TANF, or prior to June 30th, 2012, was on Medicaid, we would be involved in their case. Also, parties can pay $25 and we will, to our office, and we will represent them, even if they're not receiving any public assistance. Additionally, the 4D courts can only hear 4D issues, and that's establishing paternity or support. So whenever the parties can't agree on something about taxes or visitation, the 4D magistrates have to transfer that case out, and they transfer it to Magistrate Teagarden.
And Magistrate Teagarden, you said, is here in Crown Point?
She's in here in Crown Point, correct?
And how long has she been here in Crown Point, if you know?
Magistrate Teagarden was appointed, I believe, recently, but that court has been in Crown Point, I believe, since the Juvenile Center moved there.
I think the question is unresponsive. The question was, how long has Magistrate Teagarden been there?
If she knows, do you know?
No.
How long has Magistrate Teagarden's position been in Crown Point?
Ever since the Juvenile Court has moved to Crown Point.
Now, with regard to the specific juvenile 4D courts that you spoke of, not Magistrate Teagarden's, but the other two that are in Crown Point, which one of those was it that was moved from Gary to Crown Point?
Room 5 is how we're categorizing. Room 8, Magistrate Garza's courtroom, was the court that was established in there 3 years ago, and Room 5, where Magistrate Wilson is, was the court that was moved from Gary.
Back when there were two courts in two different locations, one in Crown Point, one in Gary, how were cases assigned to Magistrate Wilson and Magistrate Garza's courtrooms?
We do a random filing. In order to help my caseworkers be more efficient, I have categorized them, and some file in Magistrate Garza and some file in Magistrate Wilson. The one thing we try to do, all the juvenile courts do, is we try to stick with one family, one judge. So if one judge has previously heard the case and another sibling is born, we like to route that to the same judge.
Are there any other considerations that go into assigning a case from one court or another other than what you told us?
No, there's actually no considerations. The only consideration would be if a judge has previously heard a case and a new sibling is born, we would like to keep that before the same judge so she's dealing with the same family. We do random filing.
Other than one family, one court, it's a random assignment.
Yes.
How are cases assigned now that they're both in the same building?
The same way, I have some caseworkers that are assigned to file in Magistrate Garza's courtroom and some that are filed to Magistrate Wilson.
Are there some 40 matters that have never been able to be heard in Gary?
Objection, Your Honor. Is that leading?
No. Overruled.
If only things that the magistrates in 4D can hear are establishing paternity and support. If the parties can't...
Objection, Your Honor, unresponsive. The question is, have there been any cases that have not been heard in 4D, ever in 4D? And now she's going on to something else outside of that question.
Her answer was obviously going to be yes, then my next question would have been, what are they? And then that would have been that answer.
Is it obvious? It wasn't obvious to me.
Overruled. Good answer.
Yes, there are some 4D matters that cannot be heard in our 4D courts. If the parties can't agree on issues such as taxes, visitation, custody, those matters that were heard in Gary by a 4D magistrate are transferred out to Magistrate Teagarden.
Does your office still have a presence in Gary?
Of course, yes.
If an individual in Gary or Northern Lake County needed records or some sort of 4D materials, are those still available in Gary?
Yes.
How are those available?
If someone needs a payment history, the clerk's office is still there. We direct them to the clerk's office. If someone needs a copy of their orders, we're not the keeper of the records, so we again direct them to the clerk's office. Sometimes if people explain to us they're in a situation and they are on the Quest computer system, we will give them a copy of the order, but it's not certified. If someone needs a certified record and the file is in Crown Point, they can call the juvenile clerk in Crown Point and they will fax it to the clerk's office in Gary and they can have the record certified if they need them. So they still have access to the records.
So just so I understand, so even though there's no court or juvenile 4D court in Gary anymore, an individual could still get their 4D records from the courthouse in Gary?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if someone were to try and pay their child support at the clerk's office in Gary, is that something they could do?
No, they cannot. They can only accept cash in Crown Point.
So if someone is going to pay for their child support in cash, they still have to come here to Crown Point?
Correct.
And that was the way it was before February 1st, 2012?
Yes.
And that's, I guess I was wrong with the year. February 1st, 2013.
Yes.
Okay, so there we go. Are you familiar with circumstances where an individual can have their TANF benefits affected by not appearing in a 4D matter?
Yes.
And what happens?
When we try to establish a paternity or support petition, there's certain information that we might need from the custodial parent. They need to provide us with address, information of themselves, or of the alleged father. If they don't comply with that information and we've requested that information and we've given them a certain amount of days, we can sanction them. That's prior to going to court. After we file a petition for paternity or support and the custodial parent who's receiving the TANF does not show up to court, we can sanction them. And what we do is we'll reset the matter for another court date and we'll alert the local TANF office that they sanctioned them for not coming into court.
And what would the typical sanction for something like that be?
What happens is, and it kind of depends on when it falls on the month, that the person's next installment would not go through, so they wouldn't receive their payment.
Now I'm going to show you what's been previously known as Plaintiff's Exhibit 8. Can you take a look at that and tell me if you recognize maybe not that specific document, but that form of document? Do you recognize that type of document?
Yes.
Is that, or I guess better ask, this is more of an open-ended question. What is that document?
It's a document that would be sent to a participant who's
Objection, Your Honor. Put on the witness.
It's already in evidence.
I understand it's in evidence, but she's about to testify. She didn't create the document. I don't believe she created the document.
She's not even asking for that. He didn't ask her that. He asked her what kind of document it is.
She's about to testify concerning the document and its creation.
No, she's not.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, let's see what she testifies to before you.
It's a letter that a participant who was on TANF would receive for not cooperating, indicating that their TANF benefits are going to be suspended.
And if an individual receives a letter like that, what do they need to do to ensure that their TANF benefits are suspended?
What typically happens is the person receiving the benefits can contact our office and advise us why they didn't attend court. They'll let us know their benefits are stopped. We'll let them know what information we need from them, and we will tell them their court date, and we also always contact the TANF office and reinstate their benefits.
So just because an individual receives a letter like Plaintiff's Exhibit 9 doesn't automatically mean that they're going to lose the rest of their benefits?
Correct.
Are you familiar with the first week, I believe it would have been February 5th, when the 40 juvenile court no longer was in operation up in Gary?
Yes.
Can you describe how that first week went?
As director, I felt it was important that I make sure that our part was as smooth as possible, so I made sure I was at both of the sites, in Crown Point and in Gary. When I was in Gary, I did have the opportunity to work our intake office, our window, to see what was happening. I did personally get to speak to one participant who came. They actually had their notice. So the individuals received their notice timely that they had to be in Crown Point, but she still appeared in Gary. So what we did, I just let her know her case was in Crown Point as her notice indicated. What we always do when people come to Gary when they have court is we call our Crown Point office, we let them tell the deputy in court, we put a note in ISEX so they won't be defaulted, and I sent her on her way and she made it to court.
Were there any other widespread problems that first week?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Were you at the window, the intake window all day, all week, during the week of February 4th?
2013? No.
Okay. Were you there, you weren't there every day?
No, I was back and forth between Crown Point and Gary.
So you only saw one person, is that correct?
Correct.
And it's not your testimony that everyone who came into the building stopped at your office that came to go to court. Is that correct?
No, but...
No, that's the question.
No.
No one. So you don't know how many people actually came in the building that came to court, to the 4D court. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that?
You don't know how many people came into the building to go to 4D court in Gary?
No.
Okay. The 4D court's on the 4th floor?
Correct.
Your office is on the 1st floor?
Yes.
So did you post a person upstairs on the 4th floor to determine how many people were going up to the 4th floor to go to the 4D court?
No.
On the week of February 4th?
Was there a posting posted?
No.
No.
Did you post a person up there to see how many people were coming up?
No.
Okay. Did you do that any day this past month, during the month of February, to see who was going up, how many people were going up to the 4D court in Gary?
No, they weren't allowed access up there.
The elevator doesn't go up to the 4th floor?
You have to pass security first, and the security guards knew that the court had moved, so they were advised to tell everyone that showed up to come to our office. So there was no need to post anyone on the 4th floor.
So the security guards knew where everyone was going? Is that what your testimony is?
I don't know what the security guards knew where they were going.
That's what you're testifying, that the security guards told everybody who walked in the door not to go to the 4th floor. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. That's what they told them. I don't know what the security guards knew, but they instructed them to go to room 107 if they were appearing for court.
And you were standing out there with the security guards, so you know that everybody who walked in, that's what they told them. Is that correct?
No, I do not know that.
It's just getting argumentative.
He answered the question.
Did you personally instruct the security guards?
I did have a conversation with some of the security guards to let them know that our office, to make sure that they direct people to our office.
Some of the security guards?
Yes.
The security guards change every day, don't they?
There's 3 security guards that are the same at Gary currently.
And they don't go from courthouse to courthouse?
No.
Okay. So you actually talked to the 3 security guards the week of February 4th?
I didn't talk to all 3 of them. I did talk with one. I can't recall who, but I did speak with one.
Okay. And you also testified that the 40 records from the Gary 40 court are available in Gary. Did you not?
They can be made available to participants if they need them and they're in Gary and the files are in Crown Point. Yes, they can be made available to people in Gary.
And they are, the clerk's office is not there, isn't that correct?
No, that's not correct. There's still a clerk's office in Gary.
No, the clerk's office with the 40 records isn't in Gary, is it?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying.
This is cross-examination.
Is the clerk's office in Gary or not? No.
No, there's the 40
Oh, wait.
records.
Let her answer the question.
Yeah.
There is still a clerk's office in Gary. The 4D clerks are in Crown Point now.
So if a person comes to the Gary clerk's office, they can't get records or look at their file at the Gary clerk's office. Is that correct?
No.
they can look at the clerk's records and they can look at the clerk's file in Gary?
What will happen is if they need records, the clerk in Gary will contact the clerk in Crown Point, and they will have fax the records over to them. What they cannot
Hold a minute. How do you know that?
because it's what we've been doing.
No, you're not. Do you
And it's what I've done personally.
Do you work for the clerk's office?
No.
Did you instruct the clerk's office on what they need to do?
No.
Do you have any personal knowledge that the clerk's office is providing records from Crown Point to the Gary clerk's office for the 40 records?
Yes.
You have personal knowledge?
Yes.
And what was the personal knowledge that you have?
Our office has requested that we have files. If we need an order and it's not in Crown
We're
Point.
talking about the clerk. I'm not talking about your office.
Right. If we need something from the clerk's office that's in Gary in Crown Point, we can ask them to fax it to us.
To your office.
To the clerk's office.
You asked to fax it to the clerk's office.
Yes, because
My
that's
question is, if someone goes to the clerk's office, can they get records for 4D from the clerk in Gary?
yes.
And what is your first-hand knowledge that if a person walks into the clerk's office in Gary, they can get 4D records from the clerk's office, not from your office, from the clerk's office?
If they need an order that's in the files in Crown Point,
No, records. The clerk's records include more than just an order, isn't that correct?
correct?
They would be pleadings,
Yes.
and the pleadings would be in the files, the clerk's files, is that correct?
Yes.
And the pleadings are in the clerk's office in Crown Point, is that correct?
Yes.
So you're saying you've been in the clerk's office in Gary, and the people are going into the clerk's office requesting 40 records, and you've actually witnessed the clerk call to Crown Point?
I haven't witnessed that
Okay, that's what I asked. If you have first-hand knowledge, you say yes.
because I've done it. I personally can ask.
No, first-hand knowledge that the clerk is doing it
Yes.
for other people.
Oh, well.
Not for you,
Okay.
but for litigants.
I haven't witnessed it myself, but I know that's their practice.
Okay. You saw the record regarding Davita Cooper's benefits being suspended. Were her benefits reinstated by your office?
I have no idea.
Do you actually reinstate the benefits, or does the Welfare Department, Department of Children and Family Services, reinstate the benefits?
We call them, and then the Department of Child and Family Services would actually have to reinstate them because they control that.
So all you do is make the call. You don't know whether the benefits are reinstated or not. Is that correct?
Correct. And the participants can tell us.
Well, but that's hearsay. I'm not asking you what somebody tells you. I'm asking you what you know. Yes? So
I'm
you
sorry.
don't know that the benefits are reinstated.
No, that's not what our office does.
Okay. Now, how long have you been the director of the 4D division in Gary?
Since January of 2011,
And was there one or two courts at that time?
there were 2 courts.
And were there any problems with continuing cases due to the 4D judges missing, not available to hear the cases in Gary?
Yes.
And how often did that occur?
I know particularly one time I was actually sitting in court and I think-
How many?
I don't know specifically how many, but it was an issue.
More than once?
Yes.
More than 10 times?
Not since I've been there or had court.
And you talked about random filing of the cases. When you say that since you've been in the 4D director's office, you all have filed randomly the cases, between Garza and Wilson, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you say randomly, what does that mean?
It's random. We don't look at anything, where a person lives, who they are. All we do is see that we need work done on the case, caseworker prepared, and we'll file it in the courtroom.
Do you have a number of cases that are filed in any particular case court?
No.
So if I have 10 cases that are, I have to go to 4D, you would always distribute 5 and 5 to each court. Would that be correct?
I can't even say we'll do that, because it's a caseworker has a case and she'll file it. So we try to keep the courtrooms balanced, but they're just filed in the court. We do
So you don't
know.
know how it's done. You just give them the caseworkers and then they do it.
Well, they file in the courtroom. I'm just saying there's no specific criteria of how a case ends up in a judge's courtroom. We just file our cases. There's no criteria.
But you said it's random, and random means there's some criteria for determining how you select which court gets what case.
No, random means there is no criteria. It's random. It ends up there.
Is it equal?
We try to keep the courts balanced as best we can.
The question is not do you try, is it?
We try.
Have you kept it equal over the last, in 2012, with the distribution of cases between Garza's court and Wilson's court?
We've tried to keep it balanced.
Is it balanced?
Currently,
2012, if you know, were there the same number of cases filed in Garza's court as were filed in Wilson's court?
I believe we had to file more cases in Garza's courtroom.
And why is that?
Just because our goal as prosecutors is to try to serve the citizens of Lake County as best as we can and keep our court dates short. And there was a period when Wilson started that our court dates were getting out of whack. They were getting too long. We like to keep our court dates 2 to 3 months. And so in order to make sure that we were able to service people in 2 to 3 months, we had to file some more cases in Garza's courtroom just to keep that balance.
So in 2012, you filed more cases in Garza's court. Is it safe to say that you also filed more cases in Garza's court in 2011 as well?
I'm not sure.
Redirect.
Prior to February 1st, 2013, are you familiar with any individuals who came to 40 Court in Gary where their hearing was actually scheduled in Crown Point?
I mean, personally, no.
Any requests? Thank you, Ms. Boswell. You may step down. Ma'am, you want to stand and be sworn? You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to the best of your knowledge, so help you God. You can be seated.
Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Sure. It's Brandy, B-R-A-N-D-Y. Last name is Jania, J-A-N-I-A.
And how are you employed there?
I am the program manager with Geminis Community Partners.
And can you tell the court about what Geminus Community Partners is?
Absolutely. Community Partners is a child abuse prevention program. So our focus is to ultimately keep the family intact and make sure we're putting in services that would prevent the involvement of the Department of Child and Family Services.
Your Honor, I would just like to ask if this person was on the witness list?
This person was not on the witness list. This person, I spoke with Mr. Drake before we went to lunch. She falls under the category of people we need to bring in to rebut some of the claims that were brought.
Okay. Go on.
Well, this is my witness, Judge.
Who's your witness? This witness?
Yeah, I'll be doing this witness.
Okay.
But Geminus was only raised by the defendants, and so therefore it's not rebuttal because they are the only ones that asked regarding Geminus. So the witness should not be allowed as a rebuttal witness.
Your Honor, the issue that's been raised is lack of transportation, places that aren't carrying, and that's why.
Overruled. She can testify.
I don't remember what my last question was, so if I'm being repetitive, let me know. But I think that you were telling us about what Geminus does.
Yes, we're Community Partners.
Yes, Community Partners.
Yes. We're a crisis intervention program. So like I stated, we provide services for families in need in the home to address whatever their concern is or issue is that they're bringing forth when they enroll.
And what are some of the services you offer?
We offer what's called homemaking, and that can be employment search, housing search. That's where the transportation would fall in. We do what's called crisis intervention, which is our short-term counseling. We do mentoring for children, and we do parenting education.
And what are the criteria for a person to take advantage of your services?
They have to have children in the home under the age of 18. There cannot be any current DCS involvement. There cannot be any involvement with the juvenile probation system. They have to be a Lake County resident, and they cannot be involved with the Healthy Families Program, which works with children under the age of 3.
Okay. So this isn't a program for everyone, right?
No.
Beyond those criteria that you've listed, is there anything else that would disqualify a person from being part of your program?
No.
And I guess I should ask, how many people are enrolled in your program approximately on an annual basis?
Currently, we have over 300 clients. It's gone anywhere from 100 plus.
And how long are these individuals typically involved with you?
Since we are a short-term program, it's usually an average of about 3 to 6 months, no more than 6 months.
And what's the ultimate goal of your program?
The ultimate goal is to provide the family with some sort of stability, to address really whatever their need was that they enrolled for, and the ultimate goal is to prevent the involvement of the Department of Child and Family Services.
If an individual involved with your program, I guess I should ask, what part of the county could they come from?
Any part in Lake County. There's also community partners offered all over the state of Indiana.
But you deal solely with Lake County?
Yes.
Okay. If someone in your program needed to come to 40 hearing here in Crown Point, what would you do for them?
We could put transportation in the home as long as...
Objection is speculative. She's talking about what they could do.
What have you done in the past if someone needed to come to court?
Your Honor, I'm going to object unless you can specify as to time, date, and place as to what she's done in the past. I don't know if we're talking about 20 years ago or if we're talking about several
How about
years
what
ago.
services they provide?
I think that's fine. What services you would provide transportation wise?
Any of the services that would meet the client's goal that they enrolled for, which would be any of the services that we're able to offer. So it could be the homemaking services, it could be the crisis intervention, mentoring. Really, the job of community partners is to link that client to community resources. So it's all community outreach based. So it's really just being able to link that client to whatever their goal is.
And that includes public benefits and child support, correct?
Yes.
Objection, leading move strike.
Overruled.
Yes.
What sort of outreach or stuff do you do so that people know about your program and the ability to get involved with you?
We have a 1-800 number that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Myself, the program supervisors, and all the staff is constantly doing community outreach presentations. We work with, do presentations at local schools. We're presenting to really any outreach place that might benefit, that the clients might benefit from our program and our services.
Does your overall Geminus organization have a fatherhood initiative?
Yes.
Can you tell the court about that fatherhood initiative?
American relevancy.
Overruled.
Please.
Yes. The Fatherhood Initiative program, the purpose
Well,
is...
Judge, there's no question before the witness. The question was, is there a fatherhood initiative? She said yes.
And then my question, I believe, was
Was
to tell us about the fatherhood initiative.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
Go on.
Yes. Okay. They work with fathers who are involved with the Department of Child and Family Services. So the ultimate goal of that program is to help re-engage and reestablish that relationship with the father and their child.
And is transportation a component of that program?
Yes.
Can you explain how it's a component of that program?
Question relevancy. Unless they can tie this to the 4D program, I don't think it's relevant. And the 4D program doesn't have anything to do with reuniting fathers. That sounds more like a Chen's case. Children in need of services where the goal is to reunite the family.
Can I ask one preliminary question?
Yes.
Is part of the fatherhood program establishing paternity?
Yes.
Can you please explain how transportation factors into the establishment of paternity?
The family advocate, who's the case manager on the case, would transport the father and, if need be, the child to the child support office to establish paternity, and then as well to any other court hearings that would follow up.
Nothing further?
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, the Geminus Corporation, is that located at, I think, 8400 Massachusetts in Maryville?
8400 Louisiana Street.
Louisiana, okay. And the Geminus Corporation has a certain website, do they not?
Yes.
And on your website, I have it as well. Does your website, type in does your website list providing services to 40 persons participating in the 4D program in Lake County?
I'm not sure.
In fact, how many participants from the 4D, how many people that attended court, the 4D court in Gary, are participants in with the Geminus program?
I don't have that number. I'm not positive on that number.
Well, let me ask it this way. Do you know of any 4D participants that were attending court in Gary that had been referred to you in order to get rides to Crown Point so they can attend court?
Do I know of any in particular
Yes.
families? I know that the Fatherhood Initiative program provides...
No, that's not what I asked you. I'm not talking about the Fatherhood Initiative program. 4D program. Do you know what the 4D program is?
Yes.
Okay. So you know that these are generally mothers that are looking to get child support, and that they have, because they're receiving TANF benefits, they are required to haul the fathers into court and establish them as fathers so that they can keep getting their TANF benefits, correct?
Yes.
All right. How many of these mothers is Geminus serving?
I don't have a total, but I know that if a mother were to enroll for...
Okay, so wait. So my question was, how many of these mothers are you serving?
I don't have a total, but I could explain when we've done this before.
So you don't know how many of these mothers you're serving?
I do not have a total, no.
Okay. Now, how many rides has Geminus provided to people that had cases in Gary, or women that had cases in Gary, to Crown Point since February 4th?
Well, Community Partners is able to offer 6 round trips.
Well, let me back up. Let me ask it this way. Do you know how many rides Geminus has offered? How many people Geminus has transported from Gary to Crown Point to attend court? Do you know how many people?
I do not know how many.
Now, Geminus Corporation, that's been in existence for 10, 15 years, something like that?
Quite a few years, approximately.
Okay. And the 4D court in Gary, to your knowledge, that has been there for, I think, 31 years? Or do you know?
No idea.
Now, when I was looking at the Geminus Corporation's website, I didn't see anything where it talked about providing rides to court. Is there anything on your website that says we provide rides to court for mothers or participants in the 4D program?
Community Partners says that it meets
Can you
whatever.
answer my question?
I'm not
anything?
sure.
Okay, well, I don't want to speak over you. I have a tendency to do that. Maybe we can do it this way. I can't mark my iPad as an exhibit on it, but I'm not going to admit it into evidence. I'm going to show her that.
Sure.
Okay. I'm looking at anyway, a website on an iPad in front of you. Is that the Geminus website that we're talking about? Is that the Geminus Corporation that you work for?
Yes.
Okay. Can you maneuver on here and show me where, pull up a site that shows where Geminus provides transportation for participants in the 4D program?
In the Community Partners section, there is a resource directory, and it's broken down by city.
Okay, but does it reference the 4D program?
Not specifically, nope.
Okay. Well, not specifically. The true answer would be no, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the Geminus program, how are you made aware of this?
Through community outreach, through the different township offices make referrals to us on a frequent basis, through different school presentations, through churches.
Now, I believe you said that the Geminus will provide services as long as you're not involved with the DCS.
That's a requirement for community partners.
And the 4D program is a program of the DCS, is it not?
I'm not sure of all the requirements, but we do get referrals from different court systems, but as long as they're not involved with DCS.
Okay, but the Department of Child Services is the state program, correct? That's the state.
Yes.
Okay. And then the 4D program, as you understand, is that a federal program administered by the state?
I'm not clear on that. I'm not sure.
So you don't know if it's a federal program administered by the state, implemented by the counties?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So in other words, in order for you to get a 4D participant before you, one of the ways would be the court would have to refer that person to you.
That's one of the possible ways.
Okay. How many referrals has the 4D court, I'm not talking about the juvenile court, the 4D court made in the last week to you for transportation needs?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think we're kind of mixing semantics here. We've already heard that there are multiple 4D courts and in the juvenile court of which there are 4D divisions, so I think that question, I don't know if it assumes facts, not evidence, or doesn't assume facts at all.
Well, Judge, he's put her on the stand, and he's saying that he's rebutting that there's transportation available for people in the 4D program.
The question is how many people are referred to her by 4D?
Yes.
But I think the distinction here is between 4D and 4D juvenile, because there are different courts here. He's kind of lumping them all together.
I don't think any of us know what he's talking about. Talking about there's 4D and 4D juvenile.
Look, we heard from the last
Well, there are a lot of courts that may require.
I wasn't talking about 4D court.
I wasn't even sure that she knew what's the difference. Why don't we do a little foundation, make sure she understands the difference between the different courts.
Okay. Do you know the difference between the 4D court and the juvenile court?
The juvenile, the DCS court, and the 4D court. Yes?
You can't ask me a question. You have to answer my question.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I'll say no, so I can be clear.
Okay. And how many drivers do you have for transportation?
I have 10 on staff, but we make referrals and we outsource to different contractor providers, so there's well over 30.
Okay. And let's say there are 200 people going to some location coming from in Lake County that need to get to Crown Point. Okay? I know that 200 people, let's say 30%, are going to contact you. Okay? So that's going to take us down to about 140, I think, if my math is correct. Are you able to provide rides for 140 people on a daily basis?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the first part of that question is speculation. I think the second part is probably fair game.
Okay.
All right. Are you able to provide rides to 140 people to a specific location daily?
140 rides a day.
In addition to what you're already doing?
Well, we service right now, we're over 300 clients, and we're able to meet their needs as they're addressed on a daily basis. So if that were to happen, then I would make sure that we were adjusting accordingly and we could meet those needs.
But what's your maximum capacity of rides that you can provide?
I don't have a maximum capacity of...
Okay, so if we needed to provide ridership, it's been previously testified in this case that ridership in Gary is 800,000, and if you needed to provide rides for 800,000 people, you would be able to do that?
I probably wouldn't be able to do that, no.
Okay. And how many vehicles do you have for this program?
Everyone has their own vehicle, and then as well as the contracted providers. They're the ones that are providing the transportation. So they go to the client's home and then would transport them to wherever they needed to be and bring them back.
Well, I've been out there on Louisiana Street. I've seen a bunch of buses and stuff in the back of the building and stuff. You don't use those?
That's Head Start. We could use it, and the Fatherhood Initiative Program has used it, so I'm sure if need be, I could also utilize that for community partners.
Now, these 300 families that you say you provide rides for, they don't need transportation every day, do they?
No.
And so these 300 families, that's like 300 families a week, or is that 300 families a month?
Our census varies every day, so it's over 300 and has been over 300 for the last couple of, it's been averaging about 275 to over 300 for the last year.
A month?
Every day.
Oh.
Our census it changes.
Okay. And in order for a person to get a ride, the procedure would be you have to call a gymnast, correct?
Our 1-800 number, yes, for community partners.
And then you have to go through a screening process.
There's an enrollment process.
There's an enrollment process. And how long does it take to get enrolled?
The enrollment is over the phone, and then the liaison contacts the family and is out to the home within 5 business days.
Okay.
And then we would address the needs and put services in right after that.
Okay. So if I need a ride, it's going to take me at least 6 days before I can even schedule a ride, correct?
Depending depending on the urgency of the case, if the liaison is informed that this would be a need, they could get out to the home sooner. They just have up to 5 business days to get out to the home.
All right. So if I'm an individual in the 4D program and I call you, well, first of all, I have to have found your number somewhere. You don't advertise on the cable TV or anything, do you?
On cable TV, no.
Right. Okay. And so you have no ads on television. Do you advertise on any local radio stations or anything like that?
No.
Would it be fair to say that we live in an environment or a country where church attendance is down, or would you know?
I don't know that.
Okay. Oh, I heard so. All right. Are you even familiar with the ages of the people in the 4D program?
I know that the ages vary, but I'm not sure any particular ages, no, or an average age.
And do you know whether or not these people are in school or not, whether or not they are in school?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay. So the gymnast program and the people in the 4D program, you don't even know if you're even reaching the people in the 4D program, do you?
With the community outreach that we do.
My question, let me, do you know if the Genesis program reaches those individuals that are a part of the 4D program?
I would say yes, because the Fatherhood Initiative Program works frequently with the 4D courts when we're talking about paternity. So they're also making aware, and we outreach to the individuals that work all over Lake County. So yes, I would believe that they are aware.
Okay. Well, you said the Fatherhood Initiative. Fatherhood Initiative is those people that are being accused or alleged or having petitions filed against them saying that they are the father, correct?
That's part of it, yes, yes.
But what I'm talking about are the mothers. Whether or not this program is reaching the mothers and offering them assistance, you would not know, would you?
But like I was saying, through the community outreach that we do, we are
speculation on your part, is it not?
Your Honor, he asked the questions. He should have already answered, even if he doesn't like to answer halfway.
I would strike as non-responsive.
Your Honor, it was responsive. He just didn't like what the response was.
That's how she communicates through community outreach. If she reaches these people or not, I don't know if she can answer.
You have a program. You're not on the community outreach program, are you?
Community Partners is community outreach. That's a function of what we do. So that is my job.
All right. And you keep statistics on all the people that you reach, correct?
Statistics is with,
Track of who you reach and talk to.
it's tracked, every client that's enrolled is tracked where they heard of community partners from, and then that's tracked on a monthly basis.
Okay. And let's see, this is March. How many people last month did you contact that were participants have contact with that were in the 4D program?
I don't have that total I don't have that number.
Would it be true to say, I don't know?
Sure, yes.
And would it further be true to say, we don't even keep that statistic? I couldn't even tell you if I did have the numbers.
It would depend on what they initiated that they enrolled for. If it was for transportation to help with, to get to court hearings, that's something that would be in my staff's documentation.
Let me just kind of cut to the chase here. You have no statistic on individuals in the 4D. You have no category in your form for 4D, do you?
Right, correct.
Thank you. No.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
I have one question. Can someone just call and say, I need a ride to court?
If they could link it to, if they were working with them for other services, which would be the homemaking. So,
Or they have to have other services, in other words,
yes,
not just for transportation to get
Yes.
to court? All right,
Yes.
thank you. You want to follow up on what I asked?
No, Your Honor.
Anything? All right, you may step down, ma'am. Thank you.
thank you.
Ma'am, you want to stand and be sworn? Please raise. You solemnly swear affirm to tell the whole truth, the nothing but truth, to the best of your knowledge. So help you God? Please be seated.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Catherine Garza.
And are you currently employed?
I am.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed as a 4D magistrate in Lake County Superior Court Juvenile Division.
How long have you been in that role?
I've been a 4D magistrate for the past 3 years, since March of 2010. Prior to that, I was a juvenile court referee beginning January of 2007 until March of 2010.
Could you please briefly describe the duties of the referee position?
Sure. As a referee, I was a judicial officer hearing a variety of juvenile cases, including guardianships, adoptions, some chins and delinquencies, and protection orders.
Did you hear any 4D matters during it?
I did not on a regular basis. I may have filled in a handful of times on paternity matters, but not very often.
And where were you located physically?
In the Juvenile Center in Crown Point at 3000 West 93rd, Crown Point, Indiana.
So in March 2010, again briefly, what was your what role did you take at that time?
At that time, I was appointed as a 4D magistrate. A second 4D court was created in Lake County to better serve the litigants of Lake County. The caseload of 4D had expanded to a point that the prosecutor and senior judge, Judge Bonaventura, felt there was a need for a second court, and so I was appointed as a magistrate in the new court, the new 4D court in Crown Point.
So you did that from March 2000, you started that in March 2010?
Correct.
And you were in Crown Point until?
I continue to be in Crown Point. I've sat at the courthouse in Gary for limited time periods, but my court has been in Crown Point, my courtroom in Crown Point, since March of 2010.
Okay. And what were some of your duties, as you just described what you do as a 4D magistrate?
Sure. I hear 4D-related paternity cases. 4D is limited in the issues that we can hear because of the funding. We hear establishment of paternity. We hear support issues, modification of support issues, and uninsured and insured medical issues. If there's agreements, we can enter limited agreements about custody and visitation, but we're limited mainly to paternity and support issues.
When you say you're limited, what do you mean by that? What limits you?
Because of the way that 4D is paid, we have to sign a waiver once a year saying that we only hear strictly 4D matters because of the way the 4D court is funded out of federal incentive money. So I can't hear a custody dispute, whereas another magistrate could hear a custody dispute because it's not a 4D issue.
You said that there's I believe you said that the federal government is involved. And could you describe that a little more, the role of the interaction between the federal government?
Sure. Well, 4D, the federal government reimburses the state of Indiana for...
Objection, Your Honor. What is the basis of her knowledge to respond to this question?
Do you know... Do you know what the federal government's role in this is?
How would she know?
I'm asking if she knows. I'm setting the foundation.
Can I answer?
Yes.
Okay. I know the way that 4D is set up. I don't know what the federal government's role is because I don't work for the federal government, but I know what types of 4D cases are heard and how the funding is done. I have to sign a waiver once a year saying that I only hear 4D matters, and that has to do with the funding between federal government and the state of Indiana. So I can't speak as to the federal government, but I can speak as to my position.
Are there any other limitations based on, are there any other limitations on what you can do in terms of your authority as a magistrate?
I can only hear 4D issues. That's my limitation. So again, establishment of paternity, support or modification of support, medical insurance issues or uninsured medical insurance issues, that's what I'm limited to as a 4D magistrate.
And as a practical matter in your courtroom, are there any other limitations on what you can do in terms of your authority?
Yes, I am a magistrate judge, meaning that any final appealable order has to be signed off on by the senior judge of my court. I can't issue any final appealable orders. I make a recommendation to my senior judge, which is Judge Beth Bonaventura, and she has to actually order my recommendation. Are you the only magistrate that hears 4D matters? No, there is another full-time magistrate, Magistrate Terry Wilson. He also hears exclusively 4D matters. And then there's another paternity magistrate who hears non-4D paternity matters, but will sometimes hear some 4D matters if there is a case with non-4D issues and 4D issues combined. And when you say 4D, is that any sort of case that would be under Title 4D or in 4D, or are there other kinds of quote-unquote 4D cases? There's a number of 4D cases. There are dissolution 4D cases. They're the cause number DR, that's the caption, DR cause number. Those cases are heard in other places around the county in dissolution courts, mainly in Gary, but they also are heard in East Chicago and Hammond under those judges. they're also heard in circuit court, which is the court we're in today, dissolution, and some paternity cases are heard in circuit court when there's an out-of-state issue. They're called reciprocal cases under the UIFSA statute, and those are heard here in Crown Point. And then there's the juvenile, the JP, the paternity cases, and those are heard by Magistrate Wilson and myself, sometimes Magistrate Teagarden, who is the other paternity magistrate in juvenile court.
Okay, so when you were in Crown Point starting in 2010.
Correct.
And is it correct that at some point you were in Gary?
Objection.
I was asking, were you ever at any other location?
Yes.
She's asking the question, Your Honor.
He asked her if she ever worked at another location.
And she answered yes.
I was going on. I said yes, and
And where was
That was
that?
the only
He
question.
could follow up.
And where was that?
I also worked at the Gary Courthouse at 4th and Broadway in Gary 2 times in the past 3 years. The first time was when Magistrate Greg Gillis was on a medical leave. We had to cover his cases, and so a few of us, Judge Bonaventura, myself, and I believe a few of the other magistrates, all took turns filling in for him while he was on, I believe, a 12-week FMLA leave. So I would go 1 or 2 days a week to sit in Gary at that time. That, I believe, was in the spring of 2011. And then the second time was just this past year, from October of 2012 until February of 2013. I was there for a period of 4 months.
Okay, before we go into the specifics of that, when you were hearing cases in 2010, do you recollect approximately how many cases you heard then?
When I was in Crown Point?
Yes.
I know when we first began the second court, we were at about a 7-month backlog for 40 cases. The wait time was about 7 months to get a hearing in 40 court. At that time, they were filing just under 2,000 cases a year, and then as we...
I'm going to object, Your Honor. I believe that she testified that she, I think, were you a referee at that time? You were not a magistrate, were you?
What's your objection? Hold on. What's the objection?
My objection, Your Honor, is that her personal knowledge of this. Does she have personal knowledge of this?
Do you have personal knowledge of this?
Yes.
Could you go on and describe approximately how many in 2010?
Sure. So in 2010, when the second court first opened...
What's the objection now? No objection?
No.
Okay,
No.
go on.
So in 2010, when the second court opened, the prosecutor started filing more cases, and the numbers started ramping up. I think at that time, we went from just under 2,000 cases a year, somewhere between the 2,000 and 3,000, 3,500 case number per year until the year 2012. And then in 2012, that number grew to 4,000 new cases being filed. And I believe in 2012, the 240 magistrates heard about 9,500 cases, which equated to about 92 hearings per week per magistrate in 2012.
In 2010, 2011, did that have any practical impact on how long it took for cases to be heard?
It did. From 2009, 2010 period when we had that 7-month backlog of cases to today, we are now at a approximate 2-month wait period. So we went down. I can't give you, year by year, but by 2011, 2012, we were down under 3 months. And today, I'm setting into late April, early May, as is the other magistrate.
Do you know why that has changed?
It's changed for a number of reasons. The first of which is adding the second court allowed a whole nother judicial officer to hear approximately 92 cases per week, which that can only bring down the wait time for litigants. Another reason is that we have tried to consolidate how we do things within the juvenile court over the past few years with the number of budget cuts and things that have happened. We've tried to consolidate everything, make everything work most efficiently. So we've worked with the prosecutor's office, we've worked with the clerk's office in trying to get cases input and into the court as quickly as possible. And we're working on a number of things, including e-filing, which is only going to make everything run more smoothly and more efficiently for all of the litigants. So it's just been joint efforts between Judge Bonaventura, clerk's office, prosecutor's office, in getting more cases heard more quickly.
Okay. You mentioned that your courtroom was in Gary in approximately spring of 2011.
I wasn't only in Gary. I was back and forth between Gary and Crown Point. Correct.
Okay. And then were you also there from October 2012 to February of 2013?
I was.
And at that point, was that where your courtroom was held on a consistent basis?
It was. I did come back to Crown Point on a few occasions to hear cases in Crown Point, but I primarily was in Gary during that time period.
Can you describe a typical day of hearings in Gary in, let's say, October 2012?
Sure. 40 is a high-volume court, meaning we hear a large amount of cases. It's not a case like this where, it's 2 or 3 days long, like you get with a lot of civil or even criminal cases, because there's paternity and support issues. They're shorter hearings, but there's a much larger volume of them. So we have a lot of people coming in and out of our doors all day long. So in Gary, there's a very small waiting area upstairs. There's only 11 chairs, which when you have a 4D case, there's always 2 parents, a mother and a father. Actually, sometimes there's more than one father. There can be 1, 2, 3 fathers. Oftentimes you'll have some of the mother's children or some of the father's children. And sometimes you will also have family members, a mother or father's parent or relative or friend who brings them. So what a typical day would look like in Gary is we would set the first case at 8:30, and then cases usually every half hour or sometimes hour after that. So cases were set usually at 8:30. The way Magistrate Gillis did it was 8:30, I believe 9, 9:30, 10. Magistrate Wilson at some point and myself moved it to where we were setting cases at 8:30 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 2 p.m. So we would set usually about 5 cases at each time period.
So you set 5 for a particular time? Is that
time slot? Most recently, that's what was happening. In the past, they would usually set 1 case per time period. In maybe the last 6 months or so, we were setting probably, about 5 cases per time slot. Anywhere, between 5 and 7, I would say, per time slot.
And was there a particular reason why there were that many that were set for a particular time?
Well, we were limited as to how many we could set because of our waiting area in Gary. We couldn't set, in Crown Point, I would usually set 10 to 15 at a time period. In Gary, we couldn't do that because we only had 11 chairs, and 2 families could take up those 11 chairs. The hallway in Gary is outside the waiting room is a very narrow hallway. There's elevators on one side, the courtroom on the other, and a very steep set of stairs going down. We couldn't have families with toddlers and babies waiting in that hallway because there was nothing barricading that staircase, and there was also no room for people to get on and off of the elevator. You could maybe fit 2 people in that hallway.
Okay, I'm going to object to that. I was kind of waiting. This is kind of going. I guess we were talking about the typical day. I think was the original question about maybe 15 minutes ago, but
That was not the original question. That was a question about 3 questions ago. My last question was... You can go on.
Okay, so the hallway on the 4th floor in the Gary Courthouse is a very narrow hallway. You can't have people standing there because new people have to come and exit the elevator to get up to the waiting area so the bailiff could check them in. So we were limited as to that one waiting area with the 11 seats. And as I was saying, if a mother has 2 or 3 of her children with her, or a family member, or a family friend, or there's a father. Sometimes in maternity cases there may be 1 or 2 alleged fathers, so then you have them. The most you can have is 2 cases really waiting in that waiting area, because otherwise people will be spilling out into that hallway, which is a safety issue, and people can't get on and off the elevator there. So we were limited in terms of space.
So you'd have a hearing time set. There were people. Did any of the parties never not appear?
Often people wouldn't appear. Sometimes people would appear late to their hearings, and the issue in Gary, because we had to set things at 8:30 and 10, or in the past 8:30, 9:30. If they were a half an hour late, which people can be late for court, they were half an hour late, and let's say mother was there and father wasn't there, we had to do the case because we had other cases coming in. So if you were late for court, your case was heard, you didn't have that opportunity to then be heard because the mother would leave, and we can't hear the case then with the father and not the mother if it's after the court time. So that did happen, and people did not appear for a variety of reasons at the courthouse in Gary.
Do you know approximately on a weekly basis how many people would not appear for a hearing in Gary?
It would vary. Some days we have great turnout, and some days we have horrible turnout. I mean, it could be 50%, it could be 90%. It depended on the weather. It would depend on the type of case that was heard. When we were hearing contempt citations, you have good turnout usually because there's the threat of a bench warrant. When you have a paternity or support day, sometimes there's a little bit lower turnout. If it's a bad weather day, sometimes you'll get a poor turnout. I mean, there's a variety of factors. I can't say. It just depends on the day.
Do you know how the cases that came before you were assigned to you?
They were randomly assigned unless I had a prior case with that family.
what is the personal knowledge of that?
Do you know how?
I do.
How do you know that?
Because I've had meetings with prosecutors and clerks.
And
That's hearsay.
I'm not asking what they said. I'm just,
Go on.
So, did you ever learn did you ever come to know where a certain party was from, where they lived?
Only once I received a petition. The petition states where the parties live. In the language of the petition, there's also a green confidential form at the back of the file that states all the pertinent information about the parties. So that's how I would know where they live.
Did all of the parties, when you were sitting in Gary, were all of them from Gary?
No,
Were
not
all
at
of them
all.
from East Chicago?
No.
Or Gary?
No.
Did you ever have anyone from Crown Point that you know of?
I had people from other states, Illinois. I've had people drive up from Tennessee. I've had people fly in from California. I have people from Porter County. I have people from Lowell. I have people from Schneider. I have people from Munster, from Highland, from Cherville, from Dyer, from Whiting. I have people from everywhere appear on hearings in 4D matters. They're from all over the country, all over the state, all over the county.
Did you notice any pattern with where they were from when you were sitting in Gary?
There was no pattern. Everyone was from all over.
And if a party didn't show up, and you may have answered, what practically would happen if a party did not show up when you're in Gary?
On an initial case, on an initial paternity or on an initial support case, if both parties don't show up the first time, the prosecutor asks for a continuance to allow the parties another opportunity to appear. If it's set for a contempt citation and a father doesn't appear, they might ask for a bench warrant if he was adequately served. But typically on an initial first setting, the prosecutor always would ask for continuance to allow the parties another opportunity to appear and avail themselves of the court.
You had mentioned earlier that as a magistrate, is it correct that as a magistrate you had to seek other approval from someone else?
Yes.
In order?
Yes, I make recommendations to the senior judge, Judge Bonaventura, who then makes an order on anything that's a final order or that would be appealable to the Indiana Court of Appeals.
And practically, how did that work to get that approval when you were sitting in Gary?
Well, in Gary, if we would get any sort of paper order, agreed order, a pro se order, we would need to have that. I would sign off on it saying this is my recommendation. It would then have to be bundled, shipped through the clerk's office to Crown Point, go to the judge's secretary, get the judge's signature approving it, and then get it sent back to Gary if that was done.
About how long, do you know about how long that took?
I would say over a week.
Briefly, I'm sorry, go back briefly. It's true, did people sometimes not show up for parties not show up for their court hearing?
Correct. Parties would not, one party may not show up, both parties may not show up. It's just...
Do you know why they didn't show up?
Most of the time, we did not. Occasionally, the prosecutor's office would receive a phone call from someone stating...
You say...
Sustained. It's been established, some people don't show up.
Some people don't show up. Okay. Well, did you, when you were sitting in Gary, did you have an occasion where you were out for the day or were unable to sit?
There were a few times. I actually, unfortunately, got the flu this past winter and tried to go into work, had a very high fever and chills, and was very ill. I couldn't leave because I had no one to cover the cases. I had to call Judge Bonaventura, who was out of county at a meeting because I really couldn't go on any longer, and she had to leave her meeting to come in and fill in for the rest of the day. I know the cases were pushed back, in terms of time because of that, but there was no one else to hear the cases, and I didn't want to just vacate all of the cases for the day. So that's what we had to do on that particular occasion.
Now, you said that earlier that you were in Gary up until February of 2012?
2013.
2013?
Yes.
And why did you move back to Crown Point?
Well, at that time, it was determined that it would be most efficient for the 4D court if we all were in the juvenile center where our senior judge, Judge Bonaventura, holds court. We all moved back there, so all paternity cases and all of juvenile cases could be heard at the same location.
And so approximately how long have you been back in Crown Point since the consolidation?
February 4th of 2013, so a little bit over a month.
And about how many cases have you heard in that period?
Well, I hear approximately 90 per week, probably anywhere from 80 to 100. So if that was 5 weeks ago, I suppose, somewhere
Speculation?
I'm doing math in my head.
It's
Over,
Somewhere in the 400 to 500 range, I would assume.
And how are the hearings scheduled in Crown Point? Or are they scheduled differently than they are in here?
They are. They're scheduled differently. We have a very large waiting area and parking lot in Crown Point, and so we're able to schedule them in what's termed a cattle call. That's, for lack of a better phrase, the way that lawyers talk about it. We do 2 settings. We do an 8:30 a.m. setting and a 1 p.m. setting. Typically in the morning, I set about 15 cases, and in the afternoon, typically 10 to 12 cases. So 15 at the 8:30 setting, 10 to 12 at the 1 p.m. setting.
And why do you have more set than at that for one period of time?
We're able to set more in Crown Point because we have a larger waiting area. The benefit to having that type of call in a family law.
That was not the question.
Is there a reason for setting it that way?
There is a reason for setting it
And what is
that way.
reason?
Judicial efficiency. What we do is because people don't always show up on time to cases, we're able to call in cases with both parties present, or if both parties, if they have attorneys, we're able to call those first. By the time we get to cases with only one party, that affords the people who are late to be able to come, so we are able to hear those cases instead of just dismissing them or defaulting them or moving on. So we're able to hear and actually hear the most amount of cases with 2 parties and do adjudications and issue rulings that way. And then by the end of our court call at 11 a.m. in the morning or 3 p.m. in the afternoon, we know that the people that aren't there are not going to be there that day, and so we're able to go on the record with those cases and determine if we're going to continue them or dispose of them or what's going to happen in those cases.
So when a person, at the end of the day, when you've determined that that person isn't going to show up, what happens? Do you know?
Yes, if it's a first setting, like I said before, the prosecutor will typically ask for continuance to give the parties another opportunity to come to court. If it's a second setting on a paternity then they may have to dismiss the case at that time without prejudice, so it could be refiled because we can't go forward on a paternity with no evidence or no DNA. But typically, if it's a first setting, it would get continued, given another date, anywhere from 1 to 2 months down the road, and then the parties would be able to come to court at that time and have their case heard at that time.
And have people not shown up since you've been back in Crown Point?
Yes, they have not showed up.
And how does that compare to the attendance for hearings in Gary?
I've really not seen any remarkable difference. Again, it changes day to day and based on the type of case, but there's been no remarkable difference between the attendance in Gary and the attendance in Crown Point. I've always believed that the attendance in Crown Point has been a little bit better than the attendance.
Your Honor, to her belief.
is there a belief, or she say she didn't see any difference?
Okay, no, she said believe. She did say believe.
But before she said she didn't see any difference.
And I did not object at that point, Your Honor.
Okay. What you know?
What I know, I don't think there was much of a difference. If anything, there's a bit better attendance in Crown Point than in Gary.
And do you know why people have not shown up for hearings in Crown Point?
Objection speculative, Your Honor.
Do you know why?
Well, they gave a reason, if any particular person, yeah, well, let's see what our answer is before we...
I get continuances. Sometimes I'll get handwritten, motions for continuance, and sometimes it'll be a child is ill. Sometimes it'll be a
Objection,
parent.
Your Honor, it's hearsay.
Just give a general reason.
General.
Why.
Of reasons, it would be, the
And
case
there's
would
not
be
a
continued,
matter, sir.
overruled.
People sometimes are sick. Children sometimes are sick. People have vacations or elderly parents that they're caring for. Sometimes dads have job interviews or moms have job interviews that they can't miss, or they're in a 90-day probationary period. So I get written continuances, and if it's, for anything like the reasons I just named, I will routinely grant the continuance until a better time for the parties to come back and have their case heard.
Based on your role and what you've heard as magistrate in Crown Point, have there been any difficulties that you're aware of with individuals, parties traveling to Crown Point for their hearings?
Since February 4th, 2013, I have not received one complaint about people coming to Crown Point.
When you were in and what happens to your cases today? Could that have been done in Gary?
If I would have been in Gary today, we would have had to have continued 23 cases because there would have been no one there to hear them. Because I was in Crown Point today, they were able to divvy up my 23 cases amongst the other magistrates that were there today. So all of the cases were heard both yesterday. Yesterday I had 25. Today I had 23, and all of them were heard. None of them needed to be continued because there are other magistrates in the building who can hear things and absorb them into their court calls. When I was in Gary, no one could give up their own court call to go hear my court call. So all 25 yesterday or 23 cases today would have had to have been vacated and continued, whether or not the people were coming from Illinois, Texas, Tennessee, wherever they may be coming from.
And is that what generally happens when a magistrate is unable to hear cases?
In Crown Point it is. We never vacate hearings because there are several judicial officers in the building. We always try our best to hear everything, even if one magistrate's hearing 15 cases, but we feel that it's in the best interest of the parties to have their cases heard on the day in which they're assigned, and we want to keep everyone having, especially paternity and support matters, heard in a timely manner because we know it's important. We want their cases heard in the 1 to 2 month time period that we have established for the 4D court.
And before you had mentioned that as a magistrate you have to have approval of the senior judge. Is that still the case here in Crown Point?
That's still the case. I'm still a magistrate, so as long as I'm a magistrate, I need the approval of the senior judge on any of my final orders.
And how does that work out here in Crown Point?
Well, in Crown Point, my office is 2 doors down from the senior judges, so all it takes is me putting a pile of paperwork in front of her office. She gets it when she gets out of court. She signs off on it, and then it goes right down to the clerk's office. So it's done on a day-by-day basis.
Okay, so does it take a week to do it?
It takes a day.
It takes a day. In in Gary, as the 40 juvenile magistrate, were you hearing domestically? Did you hear any other kind of cases there?
I did hear some divorce cases, domestic relations cases, a few. There was, in the past when Magistrate Gillis was magistrate, there was an informal agreement with some of the other judges in the county that he would hear domestic relation cases when 4D was involved. Approximately 2 years ago, Judge Tavitas, who is the sitting judge in Room 3 who hears divorce cases, she and Judge Bonaventura agreed.
Your Honor.
I was at some of the meetings.
Well,
It's still hearsay.
well, just what your knowledge is of why they hear the cases.
My knowledge is that the divorce cases went back to Judge Tavitas and out of the 40 court, out of the 40 magistrates court call, and the prosecutor then began filing the other cases, the other divorce cases from Hammond and from East Chicago back under the judges in Hammond and East Chicago. So at this point, the 40 magistrates have, I believe, I know, the 40 magistrates have less than 10 dissolution cases remaining on the docket, and those are just things that have continuances where the 40 magistrate previously heard evidence and can't transfer it to the dissolution court.
So are you getting more of these domestic
No,
cases?
I'm not getting any more of them.
Or any of the or is the other magistrate getting any of the
No, he's not getting any new dissolution cases.
Since we're briefly talking about Gary, you had mentioned the parking situation here in Crown Point. What is the parking, do you know what the parking situation is for those who would have to attend hearing by car in Gary?
I do. The parking situation in Crown Point is free of charge. We have a
Object, Your Honor, to the relevance of the parking. I don't think that
We're talking about-
anything parking has
We're
never
talking
been.
about convenience. It's overruled.
The parking in Crown Point, we have a large parking lot, and it's completely free of charge to anyone who goes to the juvenile center in Crown Point. In Gary, the only free parking lot is for employees of the court. Any of the litigants going to court have to pay to park at the Genesis Center parking lot, and those fees are determined, I believe, by the city of Gary.
Are you familiar with the individual named Davida Cooper?
I am.
And how are you aware of her?
She's a mother in a case that is on my docket currently.
Did she have a hearing scheduled?
She did.
And do you know when that hearing schedule was initially made? Not the date of the hearing, but when it was set?
It was set for hearing in November of 2012.
Was that determined, do you know if that was determined based on the consolidation?
It was prior to any consolidation. She was assigned, her case was assigned to Crown Point, to my courtroom prior to any consolidation.
And do you know what happened with that hearing date for February?
The hearing was set for an initial support hearing in February of 2013. Neither the mother nor the father appeared, only the prosecuting attorney from the state appeared. There was inadequate service on the father, so the matter was set over so an alias summons could be issued on the father to an April 2013 court date in my court.
Were the parties made, do you know if the parties were made? No, never mind, check that. Are you aware of a program called the Gymnast Program?
I am.
And how are you aware of that?
I sit on the board of directors for both Community Partners and the Real Fathers Initiative, who are under the Gymnast umbrella, so to speak.
And do you know what the Gymnast organization does?
I do. They provide services to families in need, a variety of services to prevent child abuse and neglect in Lake County. They get funding from the state of Indiana to keep children out of becoming children in need of services. So they provide a host of services to families in Lake County free of charge so that they don't ever enter the Department of Child Services.
No further questions, thank you.
Before you start your cross-examination, we take a short recess.